This episode has been brought to you by the National Advertising Challenge. Are you creative? Do you love a challenge? NAC is a brief-based competition where brands ask for big ideas to help solve their biggest marketing challenges. Leading creative directors judge the ideas. Winners get the cash. Learn more at nationaladvertisingchallenge.com.
So, Peter, I want to talk about your job a bit because all of us who watch TV think we know a lot about it. So we all believe that we kind of understand the creative process for what writers, directors, or actors. But your job's completely different. You have to look at an idea, I guess, on paper and understand how will it extend over multiple stories over maybe it's 1 year, or maybe in the case of CSI, I think there's 797 episodes. How do you explain your creative process that you go through, what you think will get made?
Well, I don't have to, the writers really take on the challenge of how do you make a good idea, have longevity and carry on season over season. My job is more to recognize that that can happen and help convince the various buyers or platforms that I'm right that it can happen. Once they buy the show, and usually because they do like the pitch, the scripts, whatever it is that you're using to mount the show, and you've given them some comfort that there is longevity. And not every project, by the way, of course, is meant to be a long-running show. Some are meant to be short-running shows. Some are meant to be just films or 4-hour miniseries or whatever. But for the ones that are meant to run a long time, my job is just to help cause the buyers to believe that if it does succeed in gaining an audience, that it can sustain itself over a long period. How it actually does that, I slowly move away from that, and it obviously falls to the writers and directors and hands-on producers. You know, over time, I've gotten farther away from the camera.
So creatively, though, what do you go through when you look at one of these ideas?
Well, the main job, actually, and this is something that takes a little time to, I guess, realize or buy into. The job is really not deciding what you think is good. It's deciding what you think is sellable. And it's therefore deciding what you think the buyers will want. You know, as I often say, a really, really, really good idea that nobody wants to buy is a shitty idea.
Fair enough.
You know, and I guess what I'm saying it sounds like it takes a bit of the art out of the business. And I guess it does, because really, and actually what I'm about to say has now been alleviated somewhat, and I can explain if you're curious. But, you know, for certainly in the traditional linear historical television of schedules, and especially with advertising, the job was really to assess somebody's schedule, find out what their appetite is, what they think they need to add to their schedule, and then go find it and bring it to them. So it's a little more science than it is art, I guess, on that level. Now, that has changed somewhat because, of course, more and more, nobody watches by a schedule. We all pick off a shelf. And so the rhythm as between buyer and seller is changing because the historical Monday morning get to the office if you're a buyer and look at the ratings, afraid to see what they say and whether you still have a job, and you're judged literally every Monday on the week's ratings the week before. Obviously it still exists, and whether at ABC and CBS and NBC, whatever, but it's being more and more alleviated by the subscription model, where shows live on a shelf. Nobody's really judging. Yes, they want their shows to be watched. They certainly, more importantly, want their subscriptions to stick and even grow, but it's less granular in how each show is judged. In fact, they all recognize too that what they really have instead of a schedule is a menu. And even if you have a show that might not be the highest, most watched show or the highest rated or whatever, it still rounds out the appetite that often many subscribers, or certainly a family of subscribers, might have. So all that to say that The historical job of filling a schedule has evolved and has changed, and now it's trying to find good ideas to put on a shelf. And so I would say, therefore, there's a little less science and a little more art in that equation.